We're all guilty of binge eating at one time or another, but I do want viewers to know that, you know what, there is a spectrum of binge eating, and in the extreme end, it really is a pathologic medical psychiatric condition. In fact, it's one of the most common eating disorders we have, and people that binge eat at the extreme end are at risk not only of significant mental anguish, but at risk of obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and those folks really do need to seek the care and guidance of a practitioner who is specifically trained, usually therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists, to treat binge eating disorder, which is a category of eating disorder. Now, but for the average American, like me, sometimes we just eat too much of a food we love. And there are some really simple strategies that you can employ to safeguard against binge eating. And the first one I'll share with you is don't let yourself get hungry. And this is a really, really important point. True hunger signifies low blood glucose levels. And the hungrier you are, the lower your blood glucose levels are. And guess what happens? Low blood glucose levels actually incite a primal fear and anxiety response. No question about it. Now, what does that mean? Certainly, if you're in a situation where you're feeling anxious, and you have this sort of, your heart is beating rapidly because you've just triggered this fear and anxiety response, you lose your self-control, you're much more apt to engage in dietary discretions and binge eating. So what is the name of the game? The name of the game is don't let yourself get ravenously hungry. How do you do that? 3 important strategies. Number 1, make sure you eat 3 meals a day and snacks between as necessary to keep ravenous hunger at bay. Number 2, when you eat your meals, be sure to include some protein. Protein is nature's diet pill. Protein will actually keep your appetite at bay longer than any other food, and the reason is simple. When you take in protein, it gives rise to this prolonged, steady blood glucose response. Remember, it's when glucose drops that we get hungry and sometimes even get anxious and lose our self-control. The third thing is, be sure to restrict, minimize, better yet, completely avoid refined carbs and sugars. I call those foods the great white hazards. How can you remember this? It's very easy. They're all white, and they're all pretty much novel foods. So foods from white flour, white rice, white potatoes, and sugar. Why do you want to avoid these foods? Because they ultimately drive and perpetuate your hunger, and the way they do it is this. You eat them, your blood sugar levels go soaring upward very quickly. What goes up is going to come down, and at the same rate. So shortly thereafter, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours later, your blood sugar levels are going to plummet. And some people are particularly sensitive to this phenomenon. They usually know who they are. The other thing, to remember here is this whole concept of hunger actually triggering almost a mild kind of panic attack. So don't let yourself get hungry. The second thing to do is to move, to exercise. I consider exercise the sort of perfect physiologic antidote to binge eating. Why? It's really cool to think about this. So when you're having that urge, like, oh, I want the donuts, instead of putting your hand in the donuts, put your sneakers on and go out for a brisk walk. Now, why do you want to do this? Many people are binging because at that moment they are feeling sad, they are feeling stressed, they are feeling anxious, and they're trying to soothe themselves. They're trying to seek self-pleasure by engaging in consuming a highly palatable food. So if you put those sneakers on and go for a walk or do something else, maybe get into a yoga pose, do some deep breathing, what can you get from that? You get immediate stress reduction, immediate reduction in your anxiety, and an immediate boost in your mood. Not only that, the other reason we binge eat is because this is kind of scary, because highly palatable foods, typically foods that are really high in fat, really high in sugar, actually can stimulate our brain's feel-good centers. So you get this endorphin release when you take in highly palatable foods. They can be somewhat addicting. The other reason I like exercise in this context as the perfect antidote is exercise will also give you a boost of these endorphins. Right? And then I guess the third thing that makes it sort of logical is if you're out exercising or holding a yoga pose and doing deep breathing, it's kind of hard to be binge eating, right? Right? So that's just a little sort of built-in control, environmental control.